So to start off our week, we are first doing a few review problems on completing the square. So this first problem, we spent a little bit of time working on. So, Kate, could you give me the first step that you took in order to figure out what to do? Divided 6 by 2 and squared it. So we did our half and square. And then when you did this, what did you get?
9.
So we got 9 from here. And if we get 9, what is the significance of this 9? We need to get this number here, 2, 9, right? So Kate, could you either call on someone, or would you like to use Dice of Destiny for the next person?
Okay.
Right? We've got our dice. We are looking at row 2, person 2. So Anna, could you tell us next? All right, so we want to get 9 here instead of 14. So you said you want to minus 5 and then add 5. Excellent. So now that we've done this, we can group what we had over here. So I'm going to write this out so we can kind of clear this up a little bit. So we'll have x squared plus 6x. And then right here we have a 14 minus 5, which will give us our plus 9 that we want. And then just hanging out here, we'll have our plus 5. All right, Anna, call on somebody or Dice of Destiny. All right, we have row 6, person 4. So in the back, Sam. All right, so we've got x and then positive 3 and x and positive 3. And then we've still got our 5 hanging out over here. All right, and then from here, we just have to combine our x plus 3 term to be x plus 3 squared. We've still got our plus 5. And our equation is now in vertex form. Awesome. All right, let's do one more. Look at this one. I'm going to make a last second change to it. Okay? I know that's what you've already started on it. Make a last minute change. What if this was a negative 4 in front? Okay? Just want to make it a little bit more difficult for you. You can do it. I have faith in you. I will pause the recording while I give you time to work. To help us solve this problem, 6th row, person 5. So I think that comes back to you, Grace. What is the first step that you took? Right, so we have a space here. All right, good first step. I like it. Would you like to call on someone or use a dice? Great. Row 1, person 3, Hayden. What would be the next step that you would take here? All right, we want to factor out this negative 4. So what do we get inside of our parentheses for just looking at that? X squared plus 2x. And then what happens to the plus here? It becomes a minus because we took out a negative 4. And then we've still got our 23 hanging out here. Give me just a moment. All right. Would you like to call on someone, Caden, or dice? All right. No one wants to call on anybody else. All right. Row 5, person 4. Will, can you tell us what you then did next? Our dear friend, Mr. Half and Square. So half of 2, squared it. Right here, overall, we want to get a positive 1. So what should we put in the blank? We need a negative 1 here, so that overall we get a positive 1. Awesome. Call on someone or dice? Dice. Here we go. Row 2, person 4.
So now you factor the x squared plus 2x plus 1 into factor.
All right. So we're going to say This is going to be put into factored form. And if this is put into factored form, what do we have?
X plus 1.
We've got x plus 1 for both of these. And we've got this plus 23 hanging out. Except there's one thing that we forgot in the last step. Ryan, can you call in someone who thinks, someone else who thinks they know what we need in the last step? I think Nate might have known. Nate. All right, Nate, did you think you know?
We have to do like times the plus 1 negative.
Right. So we've got this plus 1 over here that's inside the parentheses. But remember, we added 1 randomly, but we added 1 inside the parentheses. We need to look outside the parentheses. So on this part here, you're saying we subtracted 4. So that means over here at the end, we need to add 4. Sounds good to me. So we need to add 4 at the end here. So this 23 becomes a 27. Right. And from here, Nate, can you call on somebody or Dice of Destiny? Okay, what are we doing last step here? Also. We've got x plus 1 squared. And we've got our plus 27. And now we have our general form into vertex form. Now, you might be wondering, why does it matter that we can get this from general form to vertex form? Right? If we have this in vertex form, like, what's the difference between general form and vertex form? Yeah, you can find the vertex, but we already know that we can find the vertex other ways by finding the axis of symmetry, right? So, what if instead I looked at the first equation that we looked at here?
Sorry about that.
All good. So, we're going to look at the first equation that we completed the square for and say, okay, I want to graph this. If I want to graph this and I'm just right now in general form, what information do I know about my graph? We have our y-intercept, which is at 14, right? So we know up here somewhere at 14, our graph crosses 14. Cool. What else do we know about our parabola right now? Yes, Katrina. It's got a minimum because our parabola points upwards because there is no negative a coefficient. All right? But other than this, we don't really have any other information. Except we put this in vertex form, right? Because we put this in vertex form, what is our vertex? I heard negative 3, 5. So here, if I count negative 3, and then I count up to 5, I'll say 5 is right here-ish. So we've got our vertex, we've got our parabola. Awesome. Notice that this parabola here, it doesn't touch the x-axis. What if we had a parabola that was negative 3, negative 5, and it was down here, and it went through 14 still? What would be another important piece of information you probably need to know? What those x-intercepts are. Exactly. And if I had this general form right here, and I wanted to find my x-intercepts, well, if I want an x-intercept, what do I set y equal to? 0. So if I have that equation, would I be able to factor that out really easily? Can I find something that multiplies to 14 and adds to 6? I don't know about you, but I can't. That's too hard for me. So instead, we wrote this in vertex form, didn't we? So if we wrote this in vertex form told us x plus 3 squared plus 5. If I have this as my vertex form, and I set y equals to 0, would that be easier to solve? Maybe. Look at this. If I wanted to solve for x from this equation, from our vertex form, what would be the next step you would do? Take a few seconds, turn and talk with your table partner. What is the next step that you would do? Turn and talk with your table partner. Audrey, you might need to turn around and talk to Ethan. Right. I will pause while we're turning and talking. So we are looking at our vertex form here. And if we wanted to know the first step, Connor, what do you think our first step would be?
You subtract by 5.
All right, subtracting by 5 on both sides sounds like an excellent place to start. So now we have -5 is equal to x plus 3 squared. Can you call on someone or dice?
Dice.
Right? So I have my dice here. Row 5, person 2. Oliver, what would be a reasonable next step for us? Okay, you want to square root both sides? Sounds good. All right, we have the square root of -5. If we have the square root of a negative, what does that mean? We have an imaginary number. So on the left-hand side here, we have the imaginary number I times the square root of 5. And on the right-hand side, Oliver, can you call on someone or a dice? All right, row 3, person 4. 8. So we've got x plus 3. But then because we are taking the square root of a squared number, what else do we need? Close. Absolute value signs. Awesome. So we've got absolute value signs. And now that we've got our absolute value signs, we want to break it into 2 cases, because that's what we do with an absolute value. Are we okay up here? Okay. So our first case, it starts with an x plus 3. Kate, can you call on someone to help us finish off what this first case looks like? Or would you like a dice? Right. All right, -I square root of 5. And? All right, so we just have the positive and the negative of the value that is not in absolute values. All right, and then from here, Madison, do you want to call on someone, or should we use the dice? All right, we're going to use the dice again. And we're going with row 4. Madison, it's you again. Sorry. All right, so we've got -3 minus I squared root of 5. All right, and then on this side over here, we did the same thing. So we have x is equal to -3 plus I times square root of 5. And if we wanted to combine this, you can write this as our 2 separate answers here. If you wanted to combine them all into one answer, you can get -3 plus or minus I square root of 5. All right, if we have an I in our x-intercepts, what does that tell us about our x-intercepts? They don't exist, right? If we look back up here at our red parabola, does our red parabola touch the x-axis? It does not. So that means that our 2 roots must be imaginary. All right? Okay. This process here is just solving a completing the square. Right? This is what it means to solve a complete square. So what we are going to do next, here are 2 more problems. All right? For this first problem, same way that we just did. For this second problem here, this one right here, what's different about this second problem than the first problem? There's a 12 on this side. What should there be on this side? 0. So it would be the best idea of what to do. Subtracting 12 from both sides would probably be the best way to go with that. All right? So I will give you plenty of time to practice these 2. Right? I need to go get something, so I'm going to leave you here while I go and get that something. But I trust you all practice these 2, and I will be back in a few minutes. All right? And so I will pause the video there. We are getting back into our 2 practice problems. We've had a little bit of time, so we're going to look at the first one here. If we look at the first one, it says 0 is equal to 3x squared minus 6x minus 6. Yes? All right. First thing we would like to do, dice of destiny. Row 2, person 6. What is the first thing that you would recommend doing here, Ethan?
Factoring out of 3.
All right, we want to factor out of 3. So what would go inside of our parentheses here? Wait. All right. So we could do a minus 2 here. If we want to complete the square, what should we do here instead? Oops, minus 2x. And then it would be just kind of plus some blank here. And we've got our minus 6. All right, Ethan, call on somebody or dice? Okay. Got our dice. Row 4, person 6. All right. Madison, I'm sorry. You just keep on getting called on today. All right. If we look right here in the middle, what do we need in order to fill in that blank? All right. So what should we do with this negative 2 value? And what do we get when we do that? We get negative 2 divided by 2. We get 1. So right here is just a positive 1. All right, Madison, call on someone or the dice. All right, row 3, person 6. So I believe that is Jacob. Jake?
Yeah.
Then we get the 1. Okay. Multiplied by 3. So we get 3. Why do we need to know that this is a positive 3 here? So we have a positive 3. All right. Guys, we got to help out. Help them out. All right. Then we're going to subtract it. Awesome. So we've subtracted it. Now, Jacob, would you like to call on somebody? All right. Yeah, so how can you simplify it for us?
Just minus 1 and minus 1.
All right, so we have x minus 1 and x minus 1 because right here we have a negative 2. All right, and then we have a minus 9 on the end over here. All right, and then can you call on one last person to help us simplify this?
Okay. So you'll do 3, and then find x minus 1 squared minus 9.
All right, we have this. Drew, if we are looking for solving for x here, what would be a good bet for what we have to do next? We want to solve for x. What should we put on the other side first? Add 9 to both sides. Can you call on someone for us? Or dice? All right. We're going to divide 3 from both sides. So now we've got 3 is equal to x minus 1 squared. All right. Frank, who's next? Whoa, come on. Or do you want dice? Dice? Dice are nice. All right. We have row 3, person 3. Georgia. What are we doing next? What would be your best bet? Sounds like a good idea to me. We're going to square root both sides. So over here we have the square root of 3. And what do we have on the right-hand side? X minus 1. But we have one more thing we have to add to that. Absolute value signs. Cool. Square root of something, we have the absolute value. And then can you call on one more person for us? Help us with our 2 cases. Or dice. Avery? So what are our 2? So we got the negative square root of 3, and then what's the other case? Just a positive. Awesome. And then can you call on somebody to help us simplify these? Or dice? row 3, person 6. Again, I'm sorry. Oops, that's not a 1. Add 1 on both sides. We have all right, and then if we're doing that same step over here, we get x is equal to 1 plus the square root of 3. All right, so those are our 2 equations here. If we're looking at these two, of these two, which one is smaller? 1 minus a number or 1 plus a number? This is smaller. So today in your homework today, which is a homework quiz, it asks you to put this in the smaller and the smaller number first. So this would be the smaller number that you would put in first, right? So if you would like to look at the answer to the second problem, the answer key will be posted tonight for that problem, right, for that second problem. But I do want to give you some time to do homework. Class ends at 40, correct? So at least 6 minutes to get started on your homework. Would you like to do one of the problems together? Yes? All right. Did you? Okay. So if we look at the homework for today, it is a homework quiz. All right. From this homework quiz, I think that you can do the first one together, or I think you can do the first one by yourselves. Hold on 1 second. All right. So, what we would like to do now, would we like to do one of these together, and if so, which one would you like to do together? The second one? All right. Can someone tell me what the second one looks like?
Y equals x squared minus 5x minus 1. And then you're determining the zeros.
And you're determining the zeros, so we just got to solve this one. All right. If we are looking at this one, first step we have to take. Is there some kind of a coefficient? No, so you probably won't have to factor anything out here. So we're just going to keep this as x squared minus 5x, and we got to figure out what we need to get a perfect square. So what do we need to get a perfect square? Let's see. What do you think, Caitlin? What should we do with this? Half and square is a great idea. So we're going to take half of this and square it. Except what's negative 5 divided by 2? Negative 2.5, which is some kind of fraction. So I'm just going to leave it as a fraction right now. If we have 5 divided by 2 and you square it, that's just 25 over 4. Okay? So over here, we need a 25 over 4. All right, how do we get from negative 14 to 25 over 4? What's 14 times 4? 56. 56. So would you agree that if I have negative 14 is the same thing as saying 56 over 4? Or negative 56 over 4? This one is hard. I would definitely pay attention to this one. This one's got a fraction in it. It's not really something we've been looking at yet. All right, we've got a fraction. So here that means that we are going to be, if this is 56 over 4, and we need to get to 25 over 4, how do you get from negative 56 to positive 25? That would be like 56 plus 25. That would be 81. Okay, so we have 81. So here that means we need to add 81 over 4 and then subtract 81 over 4. I know that these are ugly numbers. You can do it. All right. We have 25 over 4 from this part right here. And then we have this minus 81 over 4 that we're just going to leave over there. All right. Then we've got our group here. Because we've got our group here, if we rewrite this, what's going to be our 2 factors? What number multiplies by itself to get us 25 over 4? 5 over 2. And then does it need to be positive or negative? needs to be negative. So we have a negative 5 over 2 for both of those. And then we've still got this negative 81 over 4 hanging out. All right? And then from here, we need to simplify this. So I'm just going to simplify that step for you because I think you can combine like terms. All right. From here, now our problem is we've got an in vertex form. We need to solve for the zeros, right? Y becomes 0 because we want to look for the x-intercepts. What is the first thing that you think you could do? You got it? All right. Should I use dice for this one? Plus 81 over 4. Thank you, Anna. So we have, that's not an 8 in any way, shape, or form. 81 over 4 to both sides. So then we have 81 over 4 equals x minus 5 halves squared. So if we square root both sides, if we square root 81, what's the square root of 81? Wow, this turns out into some kind of nice fraction? That's crazy. And then we have an x minus 5 over 2, but if we took the square root of it, what's left? We have the absolute value signs. So then we have to break it up into our two cases. We have x minus 5 halves is equal to 9 halves. And can someone else give me the other case? And since you were the last person to look at this one, can you call on somebody to give us the next case? Call on somebody.
X minus 5 equals negative 9 over 2.
So you've got the negative version. All right. Can you wait 2 seconds?
Yes.
All right. Adding 5 halves. If we add 5 halves to this, 9 plus 5, 14. 14 divided by 2, 7. And then on this side, 5 halves. 5 halves, 5 plus negative 9 is negative 4. So this is negative 4 over 2. X equals 7, x equals negative 2. All right, have a great rest of your day. And that is all we are going to do for today.